Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 72 of Humanity versus Insanity. Now, this is the first show for 3 weeks, seeing as we've had AV7 and an event in Amsterdam, and also, of course, a seminal decision by North Yorkshire County Council Planning Committee over the decision to open the north of England to the unconventional gas industry, i.e. fracking. But we'll be talking more about that at 9 o'clock on episode 89 of Fracking Nightmare. But tonight I'm joined by an old friend who has been with us on numerous occasions over the past couple of years, and was actually a speaker at AV6. And I came along to AV7 this year as a participant, as a delegate. And so it's my great pleasure to welcome Pippa King. So Pippa, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. Thank you for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. And so it's been a couple of weeks since AV7. I must confess, I'm always the least sociable person at AV events because, I'm just trying to make sure that things run as smoothly as they should. So we didn't really get too much of an opportunity to talk. But what were your thoughts on AV7? I mean, obviously, you had the opportunity to sit back and hopefully enjoy this one compared to actually delivering a presentation as you did the previous year.
It's just a great event. Some inspirational speakers, equally inspirational delegates as well, that people that aren't speaking. It's a great crowd that go. And it to your credit, Ian, it ran very smoothly, I thought, and it was just very good value for money for what you actually paid for it. That was my...
Yeah, I have a good team. I mean, I can't claim all the credit, and it's a small team, but obviously they've put on 7 events now, and so they know what's involved. In fact, Patrick Henningson wrote an exceptional review of the event, and of course, Patrick actually broadcasts 21st Century Wire from the AV venue on the Sunday afternoon, and he sent me through a couple of pictures. So this is somebody that you can't see it, of course, but I can. This is somebody you might recognise. This is I don't know, some guy introducing the event, and here's the scene. And I mean, I think the atmosphere that we created. I mean, it was the blandest room you could possibly imagine when we saw it, and it's thanks to Kyle primarily, whose wonderful graphics transformed the room into the AV7 arena. And as you say, I mean, I think this was remarkable because we had the broadest spread of people, over 200 people, literally from all walks of life, from right across the social, the political, the religious, the philosophical spectrum, and all united by the awareness that something isn't quite right about the way in which humanity is, dare I say it, being governed, or we're allowing ourselves to be governed. And as you say, some remarkably inspirational people there. So
I thought the range of topics as well, going from health and nutrition all the way through to the financial system, looking at the geopolitics, it really covered an awful lot of information, I thought.
I agree. I mean, there was certainly something there for everyone. So AV8, you're coming to AV8?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would. I think I might. I think I might too. Anyway, we spoke briefly after AV, following an article that had appeared in the Daily Mail, and this was the article: spy cameras taking 34 million pictures of drivers every day. And for anybody who hasn't seen either your AV6 presentation or any of the other Humanity versus Insanity or any of the other interviews that you've done over the last couple of years, then, let me make the observation, Pippa, that you are, in my opinion, this country's leading campaigner in terms of raising awareness and challenging central government on the rapidly accelerating, I should say, agenda to effectively surveil the bejesus out of us. I mean, the UK is now the most surveilled country on the planet. And this is an article, and of course, you know, what reaction did it get? Nothing. And yet here is the open admission that, you know, basically there are 34 million pictures of drivers every day. Now, what caught my eye there was the fact that it said of drivers, not of number plates, of drivers. So, you know, what is your take on what's going on here, Pippa?
Well, the ANPR network was set up a number of decades ago, and it's had no sort of legal remit from Parliament at all. And there is an organisation called No CCTV that have been fighting the use of APR cameras and CCTV in general in public space.
So, and ANPR is?
Automated
number plate recognition.
Number plate or license plate recognition. You might see LPR as well. That means the same thing. And so they've been sort of fighting and challenging the use of ANPR cameras in the UK with really not much effect. You know, they've done very well, and the people that run it are very hard working. But I know certainly the camera scheme, ANPR scheme for the London going in and out, and the charges they charge for vehicles going into and out of London, they wanted to also point the cameras to the drivers' faces, not just at the number plate. So this, if it's happening in London, or the proposals that it's going to happen in London, then presumably they could roll that out to the whole ANPR network. So it's not, the cameras aren't just focusing on the number plates, they can also focus on faces. And of course, we've got the Home Office, the Police National Database, now using facial recognition on custody suite photographs, of which there are thought to be about 18 million photographs on that particular database, with a good proportion of those photographs of innocent people, because of course, if you get arrested, you get your DNA, fingerprints and photograph taken. Your DNA and fingerprints are considered biometric data. The photograph wasn't or isn't being considered a biometric data on you at this moment, though it should be, because it is measuring your face, and they're certainly running biometric facial recognition identification systems against your biometric data. So bio means life, metric means measure, so it's basically a measure of you. And we've got the Home Office using it on the Police National Database. We have Leicestershire Police.
Pippa, is this the database that basically the courts ruled was effectively legal?
The DNA database, I think, was, and that was addressed in the Protection of Freedoms Act 2012. We have a biometrics commissioner who actually is on it with the retention of DNA and fingerprints of innocent people and people who have gone through the system, and then that data needs to be destroyed. Unfortunately, his remit only concerns DNA and fingerprints, so he has no remit over the photograph database, probably for a reason. So I think he's quite keen, and I've certainly been in contact with him. We communicate on this about how the photographs should also be brought under that sort of bit of the Protection Freedom Act, so that they get treated with the same stringency that DNA and fingerprints do. And at the moment they don't. The police can retain photographs for us an indefinite amount of time. Now, there was a court case a few years ago where somebody who was innocent challenged it, and the ruling was that they should be held for sort of no longer than a few months. But of course, nobody is checking whether or not the police are doing that, and certainly we're waiting for a Home Office report on the use of facial recognition and biometrics. In 2014, there was a House of Commons Select Committee looking at the current and future uses of biometrics, and the Home Office and ACPO, the Association of Police Chief Officers, submitted reports, failed to mention that they were using facial recognition on the Police National Database. The Biometrics Commissioner, in effect, outed the fact that they were, and the Home Office were told by the panel of MPs on the Select Committee to submit a report by early 2015. And that report has still not been submitted to Parliament. It was due, and apparently it's been drafted and ready to be published as of March this year, but it's still not been presented. So it's almost like trying to shut the stable door after the horse has bolted.
But now, listen, let's just go back to the photographs that are on their database, because obviously the evidence gatherers, as they refer to themselves, are blatantly present at any gathering which purports to, shall I say, challenge the establishment agenda. And of course, I mean, you and I are both very familiar with the evidence gatherers from our time on the various protection camps of the anti-fracking community. And these evidence gatherers are there taking everybody's photograph. And, I mean, so this is not just applying to people that commit alleged offences. And they are claiming, of course, that they're taking they're making the recording so that in the event of any arrest, then they have a live record. But it's remarkable how many times their footage actually seems to go missing. And the courts are reliant on the independent footage, such as the likes of myself and other people there with their cameras trained on the events are recording at the time. So what is happening to this footage or these stills that these evidence gatherers are collecting of people who have not committed and certainly have not been accused or charged of any criminal offence?
They can be logged on databases regionally and then checked against the Police National database to see whether or not any of the persons in the crowds there would be persons of interest that have either been arrested and are innocent, or that the charges were dropped, or have been arrested and charges have stuck. So they can check who's at these gatherings against the Police National database photographs. I guess they could also check as well against the driving licence photograph database and the passport database if it's for national security reasons.
So, I mean, we literally are in a Stasi state. In fact, the law enforcement or secret police of the old Soviet bloc would have been in ecstasy at having the tools available that are now being rolled out literally indiscriminately across the UK. I mean, and yet we still believe that we live in a free country.
Well, this was one of the reasons I telephoned you after you put the article up about the ANPR cameras, because there is a company called Sequester that I think I briefly mentioned in the last Humanity versus Insanity we did, that is a private company that wants to basically make dumb CCTV smart. So what it would do is, after an event, it would collect all the CCTV camera footage from private surveillance systems and public space television, put them on a database and basically make it also the same format, so their software could then track people right across the city. And actually, there was an article in Wired magazine last August that made the claim that this company could actually track somebody around the world if they had the CCTV footage. So this is what the Met Police are working with them at the moment. So basically, the public space camera television systems are, I think, about 6 to 8%. So there's a huge 90+% of the camera systems that are operating in the UK are private surveillance. And it would be a gift to any police force or security service if they could actually link all these private security cameras together. So Sequester at the moment can only look at historic data and advise security services on what's happened. It's not a system that can be run in real time. However, from time to time, I will do an internet search of Sequester to see what's happening with them.
Well,
and I did this.
You've actually sent me this page from the Sequester website. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to share something else with you that is, one of those remarkable synchronicities. But it says here, Sequester, founded in July 2014, so the company's not even 2 years old yet, to develop a solution to the problem of how to find people in video data. 1.4 trillion hours of CCTV footage last year, only a fraction of 1% of that data is ever analysed. Meanwhile, security teams across the globe are crying out for a solution. Sequester is working with the thought leaders in person re-identification and other areas of video analytics to develop a system capable of finding people in vast amounts of video data, either retrospectively or in real time, to help solve crimes and save lives. So there you have it. Sequester.
That's their vision. I was just talking to you before we came on air. I was looking at the people that are board of directors of Sequester belong to a private equity company called Anglo Scientific. Their projections of Sequester's turnover by 2020 are £50 million. That's some growth of the business from 2014 to 2020 from 0 to 50 million.
0 to 50 million. Well, you know, and as it so happens, yesterday I was just chilling out in the afternoon with my youngest son, and he wanted to watch the latest Fast and Furious movie, which I think is number 7 or 77 or whatever. And anyway, the primary plot is that they are looking to rescue a hacker who has developed a software called Global Eye. And this software literally has the capability and the capacity to tap into any camera or camera device anywhere on the planet. So literally, you know, if somebody's holding their mobile phone up to their ear, the camera can be activated in this plot and video, you know, what's going on alongside it. And of course, the software is capable of analyzing all the data that's coming in from literally all over the world and identifying the person of interest. So, you know, once again, we've got life imitating art or vice versa.
I personally see those sort of stories in films as a softening effect in the population, especially the younger generation. The Sequester are working with a company called RPS, which is Radio Physics Solutions, and they were working with Radio Physics Solutions to try and get their lack of being able to do it in real time to real time. So Radio Physics Solutions are a company that provide a TSA-style scanner system that will scan crowds rather than people just walking through a normal TSA-style turnstile at an airport. So they have developed a system called Myrtle. Well, actually, they haven't developed it. To be fair, Manchester Metropolitan University have developed it, and it's been in development since at least 2004, 2006, funded by our taxpayers' money. They've come through the research councils, the Engineering, Physics and Science Research Council, funded it to the tune of £130,000 from 2006 to 2008. Radio Physics Solutions were incorporated in 2008. They were then helping fund this research at Manchester Metropolitan University. It was also funded by the Met Police, the Home Office, and the Centre for Protection of National Infrastructure, which we have in this country, which I wasn't aware of until only recently, to the tune of £1 million. So over £1,130,000 of our public money has gone in to develop this very high frequency scanning device. So this scanning device uses frequencies from 75 to 110 gigahertz. So it's way up the spectrum, given the fact that our Wi-Fi is 2.54 up to 5.2 in Europe gigahertz. So this is an extremely high frequency. It's called a millimeter microwave. And this is what the scanners use in America. However, there was some controversy about the American scanners because of the detail of the image that was being given on these scanners. These particular scanners that we've developed in the UK aren't giving that sort of detail to a crowd. So if human operator is watching it, they just see just like a video image, not a detailed sort of
well, we've actually got a short video, haven't we? We've got a short video here of the radio physics system being tested in the Istanbul court building. So let's take a look at the video, and then we can you can talk us through how this system is actually functioning.
We're in the Crown Court of Istanbul, and due to recent attacks on the court, we're showing the capability of Merkel's to identify possible suspects. We've got a suspect now, Professor Baring. You can see the fragmentation. We're just weaving through the crowd here, and we have a positive detection of fragmentation into the torso at 24 metres. And there he is. So obviously, as we can see, we've got airport-style security all around, and we're running dual murders today. One acoustic configuration, and the second one in configuration of touchscreen format. And here we are on touchscreen. Now, and the target's over there, and on touchscreen capability, we're going to touch, and we have an alert on the second metal as well to show that the suspect is carrying a prohibited item, in this case, fragmentation. As we approach the subject, we're going to show a fragmentation part, which is very light in fragmentation today, not that you would typically find in a suicide vest. And location of metals, the dual metal systems on the other side of the courthouse.
Okay, so that's the test by radio physics. So this is a project that started out as an academic project with an element of government funding, about £130,000 or so, almost a decade ago. But that funding has now increased to 7 figures and maybe even more, but certainly 7 figures to get it to this stage of development. And now it's effectively being marketed by radio physics, which I'm guessing is effectively the academics that were responsible for designing the system in the first place.
The academics responsible for designing the system are still at Manchester Metropolitan University. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, Radio Physics Solutions is owned by employees, directors of the same private equity company that owns Sequester. So Anglo Scientific are running Radio Physics Solutions and also Sequester, both of which those two companies want to work together to create a real-time threat alert, I guess, that can run CCTV in real time. And this is run by artificial intelligence. It's not manned by humans. This is artificial intelligence algorithms scanning for threat scenarios, much like it is doing in that video. So the way that the system works is that it's sending out a splash of ultra-wideband radio frequency on the 75 to 110 gigahertz.
That's this projector here, this transceiver.
And it has a range of about 30 to 40 metres. There's a handheld one that has a range of about 6 to 10 metres. I think you've got a couple of slides there, Ian. I can't see you at all, so I don't know what's going up on screen.
Yeah, I think this is the handheld version, I think.
But ultra-wideband, I mean, I know specifically about this technology because they were using it at West Cheshire College to tag kids with it. So ultra-wideband gives it's almost like having a radar penetration system, so you can do ground geophys with it. The American military were looking at using it for low-flying drones to look into buildings and to see what was in a building. There's some talk of it being used medically instead of scanners when people are pregnant, so they can see inside the body. I did read one report that Chinese military were using it to see what was inside buildings, and it was so sophisticated they could actually see whether or not a person was breathing. So this is a sophisticated technology that has its grounds in military use, but now is coming to the streets, presumably with the UK, because there was a Smart Investor Mayor's Showcase event in London in March, and this is where I found this article when I was searching for Sequester to see what they were up to, and I found this connection with Radio Physics Solutions. And so they're working with the Metropolitan Police at the moment to try and work together, bringing CCTV and this radio frequency system in. And when I saw the article that you put up on social media, Ian, I just thought, my goodness, if you had one of these, sort of going 3 to 5 years down the line, if you had these detectors on every single ANPR camera built into lampposts, you could effectively scan everybody all the time. You could also see what was in people's cars, because this system presumably can be programmed at the moment to identify weapon-shaped objects and suicide vests. Maybe you could program it to maybe detect other things like knives. And once you've taken our ability, I guess, to arm ourselves, not that I should suggest there would be a physical revolution, though, but it takes away that ability for us to ever do that.
So, I mean, basically, somebody must be very, very scared You know, I mean, because to look to implement this kind of blanket technology, then either they're running scared right now, or they are planning to create a situation which would cause them to be very concerned about their well-being. And so they want to get ahead of the game here and have this technology in place. So that, as you say, basically nobody can leave the home without anything other than, well, cash won't be, if they have their way, there won't be any need for coins. So you literally have nothing but plastic, or God forbid your chip, in your hand or wherever when you leave the house. And if you do have anything else, you'll be picked up.
That's right, and the camera system would pick you up wherever you went. You know, it wasn't the AMP, because they were talking. You know, if the ANPR camera system is now being tilted upwards or revamped to also take pictures of faces, it's not just, you know, taking your number plate. It's you being documented wherever you travel, and especially as well if you hook that up with the car insurance black box scheme and the smart motorways that are being installed at the moment. It's a big grid that's coming down us, and nobody is really particularly aware of it, because all this sort of technology can be built into the existing infrastructure, and essentially everything looks still the same. And there's a huge, vast amount of data now. I don't know what the police are doing with 34 million images of car number plates, but again, it will be a system that will flag up car number plates of interest and where they're going. It was
where
funny,
they've been.
Where they've been. It was at Crawberry Hill, and I went up there to the camp, the anti-fracking camp, and the police guy said, "Do you want to give me a name?" I went, "No," and he just looked at my card number plate and he said, "I can find out who you are anyway." So I thought, yeah, they can do that. These driving license and number plate systems are all interconnected with the police and security services, so there is already the capability with the photographs and the license plates, especially with the driving license now being photographed driving license, to sort of hook us all up and connect dots. And these, you know, the Home Office are buying systems that are doing that, but they're just not telling the public. They're not even telling Parliament, and they're not submitting reports when they've been asked to do so. I've got a Freedom of Information request in with the Home Office to ask them where the report is. I've got a Freedom of Information request with the Met Police and British Transport Police, because they're both working with Sequester, and I've also got a Freedom of Information request in with the Met Police about radio physics solutions, because Manchester Metropolitan University actually said that because of the sensitive nature of the research they're doing, they've only ever given 2 press releases out. One was in 2009 to the BBC, that was fairly bland, and then the other one was in 2013 to the BBC. So there's very little about this technology, and certainly, as far as I'm aware, it's absolutely groundbreaking. In fact, that this is globally the first time this sort of technology is planned on being used on the public, I guess, on the streets of London, in a real-time scenario. This is what I've got my Freedom of Information request in about. And again, just like the children, and this is how I ended up at this point after 12 years of campaigning against biometrics in schools. That technology was introduced without any discussion or knowledge of parents, and this is the same thing now. It's our turn. You know, we had to sort of try and get permission for that to happen with the kids, and we did that, but it's not an appropriate technology, and this isn't appropriate. And also, as well, I think the debate needs to be had in society. It's what type of society do we want, or do we have, that we need to surveil ourselves so much? Shouldn't we be building a stronger society on trust and not thinking that everybody's a threat? It's this fear porn that's going on all the time, and it's not at all healthy. And it's certainly not the type of society I'd like to see my children or grandchildren growing up in, or myself, you know. So, you know, if you're going to have this technology, so for example, if you had this radio frequency technology in an earthquake scenario and a building had come down and you needed to find out who was in there, whether they were still alive, whether they were breathing, if you had anybody alive, brilliant, it's a tool. You can't uninvent it. We need to have some, in my opinion, serious debates on where we're going as a society with this type of technology, because at the moment it's eroding all of our freedoms, and I think it's a worry if we're not able to bear arms. Not that we do much anyway in the UK, but just don't be carrying a weapon-sized object around on you, because you'll become a person of interest with possibly a SWAT team coming down on you. We don't know where this is going. Again, there's been no discussion in Parliament, and certainly very little discussion in the mainstream media or even alternative. And I only stumbled across this because I was looking at sequester. So, but I will be looking at it
now.
Well,
the assumption, of course, is that everybody, and I mean everybody, is a potential enemy of the state. And, when we see what's occurring in France right now, and of course anybody who relies on the mainstream media for their information will have no idea what's going on in France right now, because, the whole of the unrest in pretty much every major city in France right now is being suppressed by the mainstream media. And in fact, the brutality of the CRS, which is the French riot police, is legendary. But these guys are basically being given a free hand to control attempt to control the unrest in France, which of course is actually serving to fuel it, because people that weren't activists in any way prior to this are now starting to realize that something isn't right, and that their previous vision of French society is unraveling at a phenomenal rate of knots. So, they're creating a situation which will give them the opportunity to introduce even more oppressive legislation than the French already have in place. And of course, they already have a state of emergency in place, and they're looking to implement some labour legislation and a whole bunch of other aspects which are causing people to question, who the French government is actually working for. But to extend this technology, because what we're looking at here is relatively low-powered scanners in the microwave bandwidths. So we're looking at handhelds which have a range of just a few feet, to the tripod-mounted transceivers, which have a range of 40, 50 feet, 10, 15, maybe 20 meters. But then when you ramp it up a notch or 3, it becomes a whole new ball game. And we have a video here on active denial technology. And let's take a look at this, because this is fundamentally the granddaddy of what we've just been looking at.
DoD's active denial technology and future solid-state active denial technology system will produce a focused beam of directed energy to provide our troops a non-lethal option to stop, deter, and turn back suspicious individuals with minimal risk of injury. Active denial technology is designed to protect the innocent, minimize fatalities, and limit collateral damage across the range of military operations. Active denial technology uses radio frequency millimeter waves at a frequency of 95 gigahertz. Traveling at the speed of light, the millimeter wave directed energy engages the subject, penetrating the skin to a depth of only about 1/64th of an inch. The beam produces an intolerable heating sensation, compelling the targeted individual to instinctively move. For the military, active denial technology can be used for both force application and force protection missions. Applications include crowd control, perimeter security, patrol and convoy protection, and other defensive and offensive operations from both fixed site or mobile platforms. While the active denial system advanced concept technology demonstration succeeded in demonstrating a large-scale version of active denial technology, a smaller scale, more mobile version is being developed by the U.S. Army and the DoD's non-lethal weapons program, utilizing solid-state technology. This system will demonstrate and prove out the critical technologies for a follow-on tactical system, which will be an adjunct system that can be installed on a range of tactical or support vehicles. It will have an azimuth drive for full 360-degree coverage, E-steering and azimuth for fine steering control, and full E-steering and elevation. With an invisible beam, speed of light targeting, and silent operation, it can be used in a wide range of operations, such as enhanced combat mobility in dense urban areas where it quickly and safely moves civilians obstructing vehicle mobility. Or it can be used to safely deter unarmed but suspicious civilians observing U.S. forces. At entry control points, it provides an additional layer of response for dealing with potentially threatening targets and potential crowd violence. It can be quickly de-escalated by targeting the leader, or if necessary, by panning across the entire crowd, while armed individuals mixed in a crowd can be engaged without risk to surrounding civilians. Since the beam can penetrate window glass, it can also be used for non-lethal engagement of suspicious vehicles potentially threatening U.S. forces. The SS-80T will be a lightweight, non-kinetic, non-lethal anti-personnel system, providing an alternative to lethal force.
And non-lethal, that makes me feel real good about it. Not. Now, the frequency is exactly the same as the frequency being used for the scanning system. Just
Is in the ultra
within the
wideband
bandwidth. Yeah.
is a 75 to 110. So I'm presuming that there'll be some 95 gigahertz going out in that. Maybe they haven't. I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know
so but it's not beyond the realm of possibility that you know, what is installed as part of the security system on you know, as an upgrade on the ANPR system. So you've got this biometric stroke foreign body recognition system operating around the country. But if you turn the volume up or the power up on these systems, before you know it, you're effectively creating invisible barriers. So, you know, you could close off an area of the country in a heartbeat, either locking people in or locking them out. I mean, yeah. In the wrong hands, I mean, it's like any tool. Any tool can be used in the way it was designed to be used. I mean, a screwdriver, you know, does a very important job. Unfortunately, in the wrong hands and with the wrong mindset, it becomes a lethal weapon. I mean, unfortunately, this is being designed by the wrong hands and the wrong mindset right from the get-go.
Yes, so the active denial systems go back about 15 years, don't they, Ian? They've been looking at this. DARPA have been looking at it, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in the States. They've been looking at this, and also about mind controlling the soldiers to make them more aggressive, to make them able to cope with better situations. And we have no idea what these long-term effects these frequencies are going to have, apart from the terrible privacy and civil liberties implications that they carry with them in this sort of context.
Well, I don't think they're necessarily admitting some of the problems they've had, because I know that they did deploy these systems, or an early version of these systems, in Afghanistan, which were actually quietly removed from Afghanistan. And I think one of the reasons being put forward was that they took about 14 hours to actually power up and to boot, which doesn't seem really plausible. But I mean, it has been acknowledged that there have been minor injuries. I mean, blistering of the skin and you know, third-degree burning of the skin. And this is what he's admitted to. And of course, these are the short-term manifestations. And like you say, you know, what we don't know is what the longer-term implications are, not just for the people at the receiving end of it, but those who are operating the system as well. Not that the establishment really gives a damn about any impact on the operators.
The microwave technology as a weapon has been looked at since the 1950s. There was a famous case in the 1970s, I can't remember the dates off the top of my head, where the Americans were beaming microwave technology or radiation into the Russian embassy.
Yeah, the Soviet embassy, yeah.
That's right. And so this, to think that it's now being used on us, claiming it's safe, that it only penetrates 0.4 of a millimetre into the skin, well, that's exactly what this technology, the active denial system technology, is doing, to heat up your water. And that's it's basically a microwave. But with it being ultra-wideband, I have to say I've seen no evidence to have any health effects, but it's such a new technology that, you know, cell phones, mobile phones, were purported to have no problems at all 20 years ago. And it's only really now that in the mainstream media, reports are coming out, although there's been reports done for over a decade, that the radiation is bad for you and it gives you brain tumours. And so what are we going to see in the next 10 years if this technology is installed, and also installed without any discussion whatsoever or media? So I should certainly be keeping an eye on it, and when I get the Freedom of Information request back, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm denied them, actually, if they cite one of the sections under the Freedom of Information Act for national security. And if they do, then that's still a story. I'll just keep at it, see if I can get any MPs to ask any questions in Parliament. I know a couple that have been very helpful with the biometrics, facial recognition and the school issue. So we just have to use...
Well, as with all of these things, I mean, it really does need more people to take an interest. I mean, as I've unfortunately observed before, you know, people say, oh, you know, my God, what happens if we have a zombie apocalypse? Well, we're in it. You know, we're in it because the vast majority, sadly, don't care. You know, they are already zombified. They are already slaves to an increasingly oppressive system. So, you know, the argument goes, you know, do we just leave them to their fate and concern ourselves with those who do have an awareness of what's occurring? But, you know, if we take the more altruistic approach, then, you know, there's no reason that we should leave these people who, for whatever reason, are not yet aware of what's occurring to their fate. You know, we should give them an opportunity to actually see that they are being treated literally as livestock, as cattle. You know, they are slaves to a corporatocracy, and the corporatocracy is developing increasingly more sophisticated cattle prods.
I agree, but I also think, you know, I've been sort of campaigning for privacy and civil liberties for the past 12 years now, and over the past 3 to 4 years, the amount of people that are, like you said right at the beginning of the programme, are aware there's something that isn't quite right, is far more than it ever was a decade ago. So we have to sort of become aware very quickly, because these technical systems will stop us from physically being able to do anything about the prison that we're effectively creating ourselves, paying for with our money.
Well, as I said at the start, you know, somebody is scared of something, and it quite possibly is the fact that more and more people are starting to realise that something isn't right, and are in their own varying ways looking to actually challenge that agenda. The sad thing is that, of course, the vast majority of people who perpetrate this agenda on behalf of the ruling parasites, you know, are unaware that they are literally being used as a manipulable tool to enable these parasites to literally subjugate humanity to little more than economic slaves.
Yes, and I agree with you. You know, there's not much else I can say, really. We just do have to become very aware very quickly. And, you know, at the moment, there's only me, I think, probably looking at this and prodding a few MPs, no doubt, in the next few months. If there was another 100, then that would be good.
It would be great. Pippa,
sorry, go on.
We're fast running out of time here. Obviously, you've got an amazing presentation from AV6, which is available on the Alternative View YouTube channel. But where can people keep up to speed with your research and with your activities in challenging this agenda?
So for this particular subject, I have a website called stateofsurveillance.blogspot.co.uk. I have a biometrics in schools website, which is by it's pippaking.blogspot.co.uk. I have Against RFID in Schools website called rfidinschools.com. I'm also looking at the UK Smart Cities agenda, so I have a uksmartcities.org website. All my freedom of information requests are on a great website called What Do They Know? So if you type in What Do They Know Pippa King, you can see all the freedom of information requests I've got in with the Met Police and the Home Office in the past for the facial recognition. So yes,
Pippa, outstanding work, and you know, thank you so much for everything that you have done over the last decade plus, because if it wasn't for you and other motivated and determined campaigners, then we'd be a lot further down this oppressive path than we actually are. So we do still have a chance to challenge it and put this technology where it belongs, which is in the tools for unique and very special circumstances and not for general usage. So thanks very much for joining us tonight, Pippa. And,
thank you for having me on.
An absolute pleasure as always, and no doubt our paths will cross again very soon. Well, that's all for tonight, on tonight's edition of Humanity versus Insanity. And as we always state, please don't take anything that we say at face value. You have no need to. Everything we discuss is out there for you to find. All you got to do is take an interest and be motivated to look at this for yourselves and come to your own realization of what is occurring. So for regular viewers, I'll see you at 9 o'clock with this week's episode of Fracking Nightmare.